Good evening, and everyone, welcome to this first episode of the first circle in this adventure of Candela Obscura. Does everyone want to introduce themselves? You don't have to introduce your characters yet.
Everybody, I'm Jay.
Danny?
Lyria.
Waystark.
And I will be your gracious lightkeeper for this evening and this telling of this particular story, Nilla. So we find ourselves on this rainy Thursday morning in early autumn of the year 916 AG. Lightning streaks across the deep black clouds. Or is it smoke? No one in New Brexton City is old enough to know, or brave enough to find out, what the darkness that shrouds the world like a starving blanket is. The only thing anyone knows for certain is that it is alive, and the creatures who thrive in the darkness have done their best to make sure nobody can dispose of it. Thunder grumbles through the monotonous sound of the rain. In parts of the city, the most precious commodity in the world shines brightly, giving off a soft buzz of electric light. Originally manufactured across the glass sea in Shan for combative and exportational use, it is now being branched into a more residential and frivolous, purchasable product around the cities that can afford its installation. Many places in New Brexton are still running on oil lamps and candlelight. Because the city hasn't expanded either due to lack of funding or lack of care. And with this knowledge, we come down into a dimly lit area, and we find a young man. Wei, do you want to tell us what your character's doing?
uh, let's see. Baron is probably either pacing back and forth on his one corner, kind of like thinking maybe smoking a cigarette, or yeah, he'd probably just be pacing back and forth, kind of like talking to himself, almost like he is having a full conversation with himself, expecting himself to answer all of the questions he's asking himself. But there would be a lot of feeling like he's waiting for somebody or something, and he most likely isn't. He's just going back and forth. He's got, like a oversized like hoodie, almost like if it was like a 90s starter jacket, that like just on like two hoods. It looks like he's probably got a bag with him that is going to be under one of the other jackets. Like, definitely you cannot touch this bag. It is his bag. It is his stuff. But it's probably just a holdover from the way his life used to be and how his life isn't now, that he is part of something a lot bigger than he intended to ever be a part of. But yeah, just pacing back and forth, talking, and I'll leave that to you.
So there is, in the monotonous drum of the rain, a soft clicking, and it moves in the pace of someone's footsteps as the tip of this cane clicks down on the stone walkway. A very squat elderly lady, and by squat I do mean she's short. She looks like a very old grandmotherly Not the kind, soft grandmother, but the grandmother with the hooked nose, and you assume this cane has probably struck fear into the hearts of many. As she hobbles her way, her hair looks perfect in its bun on her head, as if the rain it does not bother her. It's not even touching her to glance at her. But she is quite honestly the most unnoticeable and confusing thing on the street at the moment. And how two things can exist in one person is a miracle. As she approaches, you hear in this gravelly tone of, those things will kill you.
Dang, old Sunday morning comic book looking woman, what you doing?
She shakes her head at him. Do not speak to me like that, as she holds up a letter. A letter for you?
They got you delivering the mail, girl? Man, y'all people need to take you need to sit down or take one off, you know?
This is the easiest job I've ever had in my life.
He'd snatch the letter, not say anything to her, probably honestly tear it in half, shake it, and then open it up and read it in like two halves.
Uh, in this display of him ripping the letter, she kind of clicks her tongue, and as she turns around to walk away, the letter he's reading in two halves says, cordially requested your time at Safe Travels. And it is simply signed RS at the bottom.
I think the last thing that she would hear if she was to leave or go off would just be him saying, request, man, I don't feel like no quest. And then he would just turn and start walking down that way.
It is never a request. But he is correct in that assumption. Let's go to... Where is Maylene?
Nursing a bit of a hangover from the night before, sipping on some water, wearing a dress with longer sleeves in oranges and yellows, black coat over top, perhaps waiting on a cup of coffee, and using a mirror for powder for her makeup and powder, is just keeping an eye over her shoulder while she waits on a on a little bench at a place she knows.
There's this strange moment of silence where there are no sounds. There are no sounds of people. There are no sounds of the rain. And then you feel the shift on the bench as someone sits down next to her. And this old lady, very old, has a cane. It's propped between you. Darling, don't worry so much about your looks.
But the
They
looks
last
pays the
forever.
bills.
They last forever.
I see yours certainly haven't faded away.
I've looked this beautiful since I was a teenager.
I'll close the mirror and just turn and smile and nod politely.
She does have one of those very fancy cigarette sticks that she's pretending to smoke. She's holding it, but she's not took it to her lips yet. It is lit. There's smoke coming off of it. She just kind of waves it around glamorously. Oh, I have this for you. And she holds up a letter, and it is sealed with a wax stamp. And you recognize this stamp as being Candela's sigil. And
Why, thank you.
you're welcome, darling.
I'll take it in my hand and just gently, with one of my nails, pop the seal as best I can and open it up to take a read.
Again, it does say, the most amazing Maylene. And then below it, it's scribbled, or is it magnificent? Marvelous. It's as if the person wrote their thoughts. You have been requested to make an appearance at the Safe Travels. At the bottom, it does have the little RS.
Taking a read, I'll fold it, once again smile in her direction.
When you look towards her, she's gone. She's left. There's nobody there, and there's not an indication there was someone there.
So that's what that's like. And I'll start making my way.
Ah. Where is Emil?
Emil, when he's not out and about, doing any investigations, he goes around kind of hiring himself as muscle to anybody who needs something taken care of and just has the coinage to pay. And so Emil is actually cleaning up after the most recent service. He had to eject a couple of unruly folks from a tavern. Uh, and his outfit got a little spoiled. So he lives in this little second story rat trap tenement room. And it's just big enough for a bed. Like a commode, just like his toilet and the battered steam trunk that he keeps all of his clothing and possessions in. And it's actually so leaky that he's doing his laundry on his balcony outside where the roof actually isn't like leaking water into his tenement. And so he's at a wash tub, and he's kind of just scrubbing his outfit, trying to get a little bit of a blood stain off it. He's in the khaki pants of what looks to be an ex-soldier, just a white tank top clinging to a tan-skinned, fairly built figure, and wearing mud-stained boots that look like they're just well worn and have been tracked through all sorts of muck and grime. The balcony overlooks the street down below, and he just kind of scrubs wordlessly, hoping to get that outfit clean because he doesn't really have too many of them.
So there's a fluttering, and it's not unusual for a person of your background to see people using birds to deliver messages.
Mhm.
There's a fluttering of wings as multiple little pigeons land. It's kind of like they decided they were delivering as a group, but only one of them has a message secured around its leg.
Okay, I actually so I look kind of curmudgeon-y and a little bit rough around the edges, but when I see the birds, that all kind of melts away, and I just say, "Oh, you look like you're kind of important there, little ones." And I stretch out a finger to the one with the message, and I'll see if it'll hop on.
It does this thing where it kind of just stretches its leg out to you.
Okay. If it'll let me, will it let me kind of just like give it a little pet on the head?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I kind of do that as I gently pry the message off of its leg, and then I unfurl the message.
Got it. Your message says safe travels. Uh ASAP. and then a little dash before it says RS.
Okay. I'll fold that up, stick it in my pocket, and I'll turn to the birds and say, "Thanks, soldiers." And then I walk over to the steamer trunk and I start to I desperately hope that I can find an outfit that's presentable. I find one, get myself dressed up, changed. I'm about to walk out the door when I realize that my boots are still pretty soiled, so I'll run back to where I was doing the laundry, just grab the shirt that was soaking in the water, wipe off my boots, toss it in, and then I'm out.
That poor shirt. uh, the birds did fly away by the time you got back. They've found themselves a nice dry place to not have to.
Currently at the moment, Colin is just finished cleaning up at the shop. The way it's set up, you have the entryway, and it's like just walls covered in books, shelving upon shelving, with a desk in the very center of the store. And just before you get to the very back, there's a bit of a side room where you see him closing these double doors. That room over there is used as a kind of like a reading room for book clubs to come and gather and read together or go over their latest uh, read novels. Uh, he's locking everything up and kind of getting things closed up for the night. See him pick up a box with some magazines, puts them behind the desk as he's wiping the counter down.
As you're wiping, you hear it sounds like the rain gets louder, as if the door opened, but the door itself didn't make any noise.
Mm-hmm.
After a few moments, this elderly lady, she's looking up with you with a letter in hand.
Ma'am.
I am here.
Gracefully takes the letter from her.
Excuse me. You know, you should really do something about that bell above the door. You know that the bell normally rings when people
Mhm.
come in.
Yes, I'll see to adding that to my to-do list. Is there anything I can assist you with while you're here?
I am just doing the errands, the things they ask me to do, keeping an old lady spry.
And just nods at her. You be well.
I will be well, it is what I'm known for. Stay dry in this rain.
Thank you. Kind of just takes the letter, kind of examines the envelope for a moment. Then he pulls out his letter opener, cuts it open, opens it up, begins to read it.
It says, good evenings. I hope this letter finds you well. We are requesting your attendance at a gathering at the Safe Travels. There will be tea provided and coffee, perhaps something a little stronger if that is your flavor. And then at the end it says, sincerely, RS.
He goes as he puts everything away, just kind of fixes his vest. The way he's dressed is has a white button-down T-shirt that's very clean and pressed, but the sleeves are rolled up. But it's buttoned up all the way to the collar. No tie or anything, just a regular button down. He wears a black vest on top and just black slacks. And he has a Herringberg, kind of like those Peking blender caps, the Scullies.
Mm-hmm.
It's in burgundy. He just adjusts it. He begins to lock everything up. Um, he shuts off the lights. And he takes one look around, just making sure there's nothing else there or anyone.
There is no
That's
cat.
just making sure he's like, and then he goes ahead and closes the door as he steps out into the rain.
So as you've all gathered at the Safe Travels. Safe Travels is a bar, loft, meeting area attached to a lighthouse, which is pretty thematic for Candela and their personal favoritism towards lighthouses. But this particular room of the Safe Travels opens into the lighthouse. And on this balcony that you cannot see from inside the bar itself, when you look up into the lighthouse, there's a staircase lining upwards, and there are doors. And each door is numbered. And you know from the structure of this building that those doors can't go anywhere. From the outside, however, you don't see these doors. But when you're standing in this lighthouse, you see people coming and going, other investigators coming in from these doors, coming down the stairs, going into these doors. This is one of the anomalies that Candela keeps from the general public. Your Lightkeeper, however, is one of the remnants of magic that people tell stories of. And she sets down a radio where when she turns it on, there is this distorted and warping in and out of clarity voice that is panicked as it's yelling, "Instruments malfunctioning. Compass. For hours. Running out. Fuel." And you hear screaming in the background as the last word before she cuts it off again is, "Abandon!" And she looks towards you. This is the last message of the prototype airship, the Lightbringer. It went down somewhere in the Glass Sea. We have chartered a ship to take you out there. We would like for you to find out what is causing these shipwrecks and what is eating the ships, essentially.
I turn to the individual, like after having walked in and listening to this, I turn to the individual and say, "I'm sorry, beg your pardon. Did you say eating ships?"
Well, there are only parts of it being found, parts of it washing away, maybe? Other ships are finding them as they're giving a wide berth to this area.
Well, there. I apologize for interrupting, but are there no storms in that area? Are we sure this is some sort of phenomenon?
It does rain there, from what I can tell. Most sailors don't want to travel any closer to it. It's almost as if they're afraid something is going to take a bite out of their ship. That's how they describe the damage.
But you found somebody to take us out there.
Well, the captain is a little... He enjoys the dangerous side of sailing.
My kind of guy. What kind of ship are we going to be taking out there? Is it a commercial vessel? Military vessel.
It's a privately acquired military vessel.
Ah, excellent. A charter then.
And what do we know of this prototype that is the latest one to go down?
Well, it is, how do I explain it? It flies.
An airship of sorts.
Yes.
Interesting.
Very.
Well, glad we're not going to be taking one of those.
So from the description of an airship, and she's described that it has taken down ships that sail across the ocean. But this is something that has reached into the sky and plucked an airship out of the sky.
Baron produces a backpack from under his heavy coat and starts rifling around through it for a minute, and then pulls out like a pamphlet that looks a little bit more colorful and like almost like it's got drawings on it. And he like holds it open, and there's like different types of like cartoon planes drawn on it. These are all crude drawings of like airplanes and stuff that like as if a kid imagined them. You know what I mean? Like this is like none of these things are real as far as you're concerned. And he goes, I mean, what size though? And points to these pictures of these airplanes.
Imagine a galley. As she looks at it, you do know what a galley is, correct?
I don't know what no galley is, nah.
A pirate ship with 3 masts.
He looks back at y'all. You completely understand he has no idea what a mast is. Not there. Yeah, a pirate ship.
You know what a pirate ship looks like, though.
Yeah.
You
Just
should
going to
probably
look at
come
it
and
for a
visit the
moment.
bookstore sometime.
And we're sure this flight wasn't just some trick. It was actually able to stay out of the sea up until it had left view.
Them questions, though.
Well, there have been many attempts to make travels around the world safer. I assume they got off course in their trajectory. Most sailors know to avoid this particular area of the sea.
What complement of crew did the vessel have?
The normal crew needed to run a train, which our trains here are a little less advanced as some of the ones across the ocean. They needed engineers. There was probably 40 people on board to make sure the sails stayed moving and the coal burned. I assume that it uses coal. I don't quite see them using electricity on something this early in its stages.
Does the organization have any recommendations for us?
If it is in the area we believe it to be, I suggest don't trust anything you see.
And are we expected to bring any of this 40 crew or so back alive.
If there are any alive, that would be preferable.
Roger that.
Trust your eyes, you say? Well, I know that well.
What time are we departing?
Well, the captain is ready whenever you decide you're ready to go.
The longer we wait, the more likely it is that more of this disappears into the sea. So we may want to gather our things and be ready.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That should be interesting.
She holds up a very sloppily handwritten note, but underneath it, it is translated into her legible handwriting because you have all read her letters,
Mm-hmm.
and it is the dock number and the name of the ship. And she hands it out. Whoever would like to keep up with this, you'll be meeting with Captain DeVere.
Captain DeVere. I'll take it.
What's the name of the ship?
The name of the ship on the note says the Inscrutable.
Ooh,
Okay.
I love that. All right. I'm just gonna get a few things ready, and I'll be able to go in about 15 minutes. How about all of you?
And likewise, I'll need to grab my bag.
I'll start patting down a couple of spots on sleeves and pockets. About the same amount of time.
I zip my bag up. Whenever y'all ready.
Is it assumed that we have like personal basics, like a rucksack and like lighting supplies, lighting gear, rope, that kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay, all right. In my gear, on my character sheet, I've also chosen a hand weapon, explosives, and I'm wearing some padded body armor as well.
Okay. The neat thing about Candela is you can choose your gear when you need it. You don't have to pre-select it
Okay, gotcha.
unless
Gotcha.
it's something you feel your character would already have.
Gotcha.
Shoot, I got stuff.
Yeah. Colin doesn't really carry much with him except for a messenger bag that goes over his shoulder. And really, it's just his arcane book in there and just other pages, pencil, him for note taking. And he has a pair of brass knuckles in his pocket.
Nice.
Useful. So if there's anything your characters would like to go and handle, situate, or inform anyone that you'll be gone for a few days, your lightkeeper does inform you this it should take roughly about a week. Travel out there and travel back.
I'll have to make some preparations with Miss Lee. I'm going to be gone from the shop that long.
As I'm getting up to follow our soldier down to the dock, if I would notice the messenger bag, and I think Baron would be like, "Cuz I like your satchel, man." Just walk away.
I love that.
Thank you. Colin just nods. That's it. Thanks. You should come by the bookstore sometime.
Man, I haven't read a book like a book for a while. But
You don't say.
I like stories though. Just leave it at that.
Sure we can find something for you to enjoy.
Hell yeah.
So Colin's gonna look at everyone and be like, I'll meet. Are we all gonna go there together, or can I meet you all there? It's really quickly to get to the bookstore and take care of Miss Lee, unless Candela can send a representative in my stead, and then we can just go straight to the harbor.
You want that old lady going back to the store?
Your like keeper thinks about it, and you see for a moment, as I said, she looks like one of the last remnants of magic that is long since died off.
Mm-hmm.
She's lavender skinned, and one of her eyes is damaged. You can see the scarring in the skin, but the eye itself has a permanent swirling of pink and purple colors.
Mhm.
And this eye never actually really looks like it's looking at you. It looks as if it's blind and she's not really seeing you through it.
Mhm.
But the one good eye she does have is a softer pink color. And she nods. We will have Miss Sophie settled in and offer our assistance to cover you if she so needs it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If she asks, you can let her know I'll be acquiring some new products for the store.
I'm sure she'll be thrilled.
Well, with that, if anyone else needs to do anything.
No, I tighten up the straps on, my my belt and my rucksack. I pat the weapon on the side of my hip. I'm gonna say it's like a large knife.
Mm.
Some, give myself a check. And then yeah, I kind of give you all a look and one of those,
All right,
tips to the head.
ready to go. Start walking.
I do need to collect a couple of things, but it won't take me but a moment.
All right.
I can meet you all at the dock if you'd prefer to start making your way there.
We'll make sure that you've got comfortable accommodations on the ship.
Oh, I'm quite used to not having anything very comfortable around, but I appreciate it.
I walk a few steps outwards towards the door, and then I turn to you, Maylene, and I say, you prefer a porthole or an interior cabin?
If we're trying to not trust what we see, I'll take a porthole.
Yeah, good point. Maybe I'll do the same thing. Genuinely like mumbling that to myself, like, oh, I didn't think about that.
As I move to exit, I'll give a small nod and head off in the direction of an apartment I've been staying in to go just gather a
Okay.
few items.
Gather you a week's worth of clothes.
And a
Any
couple
good
of
woman takes 3 weeks worth of clothes.
and a couple of say tricks to put up my sleeve. And I'll leave a letter at the door just inside in case anyone comes knocking.
So as you approach the ship, there is a crew. of 15 or so men. And they are very used to working around people. As in, as you're approaching and as you're boarding the ship, they move around you as if you have always been there. Okay. And you hear him before you see him. And he is this very loud, booming voice who sounds like he's probably only had two emotions in his whole life. And it is either happiness or anger. And at the moment, he is happily shouting at his crew about getting the ship ready. I don't want to yell in this tone at a microphone, but you hear him giving directions, escorting supplies, and you see him turn and he laughs and holds his arms up. Great day for sailing. Anyone who knows anything about sailing, you really don't want to sail in a storm.
Yeah, absolutely. I step onto the gangplank, kind of feel it shifting in the with the not stormy waves, but like with the rough waters underneath. And I take a minute to get my footing, and I start making my way up, and I say, "Captain DeVere, I presume."
He smiles. Yes, and this large hand reaches out to shake yours.
Yeah, I'll reach out and shake his hand firmly, and then give him a salute.
He smiles. Yes, I used to. He salutes back, but it's brought with a wink.
Yeah.
But we won't tell anyone.
He says, "I don't know if you've been given word, but this is the company. We're missing one right now. That over there is Colin. Call that one over there Baron. And we're waiting for Maylene. He'll be around soon. How long you been sailing with the Inscrutable?"
This has been my ship for the last 25 years. This man looks like he should have retired 10 years ago.
Okay.
He is one of those people that when described, they tell you he's going to die at sea.
Okay. About that,
It is his life.
I make my I step onto the deck, just kind of lean on the taffrail, and I say, so you've been briefed where we're sailing into the Sea of Glass, right? Or the Glass Sea?
Never really been this close to the well.
Huh. So you
Gonna be
haven't
my
sailed
first
those
time.
waters.
No,
Okay, all
gonna
right.
be my first time though. No one's ever wanted me to go there.
I kind of cast a glance to Colin and Baron, like, oh, okay.
Yeah, Baron sends you one right back. Like, oh, word? That's what we doing? All right. He looks for a rope.
Colin's just kind of looking around. He's never been on a boat or ship before, so he's just like, okay.
Yeah, I will note every time this boat shifts, Baron is going to like look at it like, is it supposed to do that? And he'll do that. He's gonna do that for like the first 30 minutes we're on the boat.
Very familiar.
Is this vessel ready for departure? Just kind of like looking at everything.
As soon as everyone gets here, we can go. And he points and then kind of looks. Actually, I think it's that way.
Well, I kind of turn to everybody and I say, it's going to be a bit of a voyage. Let's go ahead and get ourselves situated around here, I suppose. Any place you don't want us wandering around, Captain?
He seems thoughtful and looks around. The boys may not want you in their barracks specifically, but anywhere on the ship seems pretty good.
Right,
If
you
Miss
got it.
Racer trusts you, I trust you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and I guess I'll head below decks and see if I can find, a stateroom or a cabin for each of us to occupy.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow behind you.
As we're walking down below decks, I'll give one of the ship's walls like a knock. Seems pretty scrutable to me.
It dunks like a metal ship
Yeah.
would. Like this ship has been well maintained for its age.
Okay.
So if it's going to be really something very large or unlucky to do any damage to this ship. You kind of get the feeling from looking at it that this is Captain DeVere's life and he loves this ship more than himself.
Okay.
But the lower you go into the ship, Baron and Colin are going to notice the sway is a little bit sturdier.
I'm just gonna look back at you, Baron, as I hold on to the wall real quick. Just kind of give you that look, like,
I think that I'd kind of look back at you and like kind of steady myself a little bit, but also kind of chuckle and be like, it's like being in college again, and he has never been in college. There's no version of college in this person's life, but he's trying to like relate to you in that really silly way.
yeah.
In a million timelines, this man has never set foot on a campus.
Right.
I
He
mean,
just
he could
kind of
have.
No,
Yeah.
no. They came to him. He would never have gone to that campus.
just look back at you, while we're exchanging those looks, and really, oh, you have to explain that to me one time. I've never been to school.
He'd kind of like think it over and think of like anything that a college person would say, and then he'd be like, "Ooh, let's go, Sean Gate Crashers," and just turn around and start to keep going.
Okay.
Quickly made up a football team for Sean's campus.
I wrote it down. It's canon.
God help me.
Oh God.
So when Maylene arrives at the ship, there is a very young looking teenager-ish boy standing with an umbrella at the top of the gangplank as if he's been assigned to wait for her.
Well, hello there.
Hi. The captain told me to wait. He's busy. We're going to sail. I'm supposed to escort you to the others.
Wouldn't want to keep them waiting. And
So he
Maylene very much does not have her sea legs and stumbles across this gangplank.
Oh, we were made for this mission.
Who knew?
I was
It's
going to
amazing.
ask GM, on the way back, I would just be racking my brain thinking of the names that were brought up. Captain DeVere, the Inscrutable. Is there anything that I can recall about any of these having any notoriety before, or is it just your average sailors?
The Inscrutable was originally a military ship, used to fight the creatures in the darkness, the lightless, as they're called, at sea. And they were oftentimes used, contracted out to escort ships, delivering cargo and merchandise from the major cities back and forth across the world. About the ship itself, probably not, but at the mention of it being a military vessel before it was privately acquired, quotations, by Captain DeVere. Captain DeVere, however, often does work with Candela Obscura. He works with OUP. He does work with another organization that you would all know of from interactions with Candela, would be Eons.
A bit of a free
And
agent, huh?
yeah, he goes where the danger is.
Man, can you imagine being in a world full of a bunch of monsters in the darkness and somebody signed up to go fight them on the ocean?
Right?
The most darkness to hide?
Like, nah.
Mm-mm.
It better be a
Nope.
very brightly lit ship.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Putting lanterns on every inch of that thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Be dropping oil around me on the ocean and lighting that up on fire.
Yeah, there you go.
Ugh.
Not breadcrumbs. We leave in ocean crumbs. Just
Bonfire.
bonfires.
Mhm.
So this young teenager aged boy leads you, holding the umbrella up for you, so that you don't get rained on any more than you already have. He is also there if you need to catch yourself. He, however, walks as if he grew up on this thing. As he leads you to the steps, he kind of pauses at the bottom. That way. And he leads you miraculously through this hallway to where the others are. Because he did stop at every intersection and look as if he had to think about it.
You have my thanks, young man. And I'll turn
And
and just wave to the rest of them.
so you all have been assigned what you assume would have originally been the captain's quarters of this ship. Captain DeVere does not sleep here. He has never slept here in the entire ownership of this ship. He is a man who is very part of the ship, part of the crew.
Yikes.
Anything that stands out in this cabin in these quarters?
It does have not necessarily a porthole, because it is a window.
Hmm.
A large window that is bolted and sealed in, to where, unless the waves are very heavy, the water is not going to come up above the window. That's simply how low down you are. But if you were to stand near the window and look down, you're really only about 30 feet above the water.
Okay.
In this room, it has been sectioned with like those partition walls, the really fancy Asian ones. And they do look fancy. They have sceneries painted on them, and they are meant to kind of make the room feel less of a ship and give you your own little private areas as well. There is a table in the center with a map of what the world was before the darkness.
Interesting.
There is not currently a accurate map of the world now. Mostly because nobody can really see where everything is.
Are there on this map? Do they happen to be any routes or pathways charted from the ship's previous routes?
There are routes to all of the major cities across the other continents, across the one you're currently on. There is it looks like a well drawn, and you assume by what the captain said that no one had ever asked him to go to the well, that's where you're going.
Baron's gonna take one of these partitions and slowly drag it away, as far away from the window as he can, and set it up somewhere where he can have like a little bit of privacy. He's not like trying to like seclude himself, but he's also like, y'all don't gotta see me get into my boxers or nothing. But like you know what I mean? So like he can do whatever. But he's gonna set it up so that like this window and him are on opposite sides of this room.
I think Colin's gonna be fascinated by that map in the center and just take his book out and just start making notations, like copying the map itself.
Maylene will take an opposite approach to Baron and find a place closest to the window to be able to stare out,
Cool.
keep an eye, and rest.
And Emil is just glad to be in quarters that isn't, damp and being dripped on by rain. He'll just find like the nearest unoccupied bed. Actually, yeah, pretty close to the window and away from the door too. And just kind of plop down on the cot or the bed or whatever they've happened to set up, and kick my feet up.
These are pretty dry, twin-size beds.
Twin size, comfortable.
It's
Got
not
room,
a
so
cot.
much room.
It's a proper bed. Look, I've slept on a cot, so
Yeah, exactly. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Nice to be able to spread your arms a little bit if you're
just a little.
just a little. Yeah.
I
turned to everybody. You know what? With that, like with me just kind of on the bed, just, pillow head propped up on the pillow, I kind of just declare to everybody, I guess there's some benefits for working in this outfit after all, huh?
And Colin picks his head up from note-taking, stops for a moment. And it's just kind of like the sudden realization of, yeah, this is my first assignment. As he closed the book.
He's I hear that, my ears perk up. I kind of shoot you a glance. I'm like, oh, what'd you know? Mine too.
Mine as well.
From around the little partition that I set up, Baron would be like, I mean, it beats pushing red, but yeah, it's my first assignment too.
Just the turnaround at the
Yeah, everybody like eyeing each other. Yeah.
Colin, roll me, and it's the first roll. We've been doing this for over an hour.
Okay.
The first roll me a. Hang on, my sticky note stuck. A survey.
Survey. All right.
And it's low stakes. So.
That's a 3.
That's a 3.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you hear a soft sound, and it's familiar to you, of a.
Oh no.
But other
Just
than that,
gonna-
you don't see anything.
Just Just take a quick look around.
I think that like Baron, if Baron would happen to notice him like kind of look around, I would like make a mental note of it, but I wouldn't say anything. I'm used to watching like people tweak out or like just have weird ticks. But I would, but at the same time, I'd be like trying to like mark what it is that he's doing. But like,
Gotcha.
because like I'd want to know who I'm with, you know what I mean? But like also, if anybody was looking, Baron might have a poker face, but he's also very obvious with his ongoings. So
Mhm.
like I would just be like staring at him, look around for a second.
Seeing that I don't see anything, but I know I'll just take a seat and kind of like open up the floor and everybody be like, where did they find you all?
I mean,
When he does sit down, you feel a rumble. Yes, he calls the rumble. No, and you, Malian, as you're looking out, you notice under the water, it does look like there are beacons of light turning on under the water.
A sigh of relief will come out, and a lot of tension will leave all at once.
But it does also feel like the ship is starting to shudder away from the dock.
Okay.
You can continue.
I mean, Baron
Um,
would just look over and be like, I mean, I ran into some stuff, and then they were like, yeah, it's what it is. And I was like, nah, I don't think that's what it is, but now I'm here.
All right. I kind of stumbled across the organization upon my studies.
What were you studying that you found this?
I'm an occultist.
You're in a cult?
No, I'm not in a cult. I study the occult.
Oh, I was going to say, if you think this is a cult, man, there's crazy stuff going on elsewhere.
I give you a glance and I say, "Well, it's good for you to be getting your nose out of your books and doing something out in the world." My company was wiped out outside my company was wiped out outside the walls of New Brexit, and when I came back, I told everybody about what I'd encountered out there. Nobody believed me, except for everybody here at Candela.
Interesting.
I think this is probably the first, like, semi-intelligent thing you've probably heard Baron say. But I think he'd look over and be like, man, like, I feel like people don't believe in stuff when they're afraid of it first. It makes it easier for them to sleep at night, even though we're surrounded by monsters.
It's true, the folks at my shows would rather believe I do actual magic than believe that they're surrounded by something that could very well spell our end if we're not careful.
Yo, you do magic, though?
I'll just wave my hand and GM from a trick part of the sleeve, a deck of cards will just appear in my right hand. I could show you a trick if you like, but I believe we were here to discuss. And I'll flick my hand, and the deck of cards will disappear back down the sleeve.
I'm
Colin
looking
just
around
had like
like
a smirk on his face.
I'm just looking around at everybody. I was like, you see that shit? Like, but like I'm not saying it. I'm just like,
Yeah, no, I look impressed too. Like I've never
Yeah.
seen, I've never seen somebody like do like legerdemain like that. So that's cool. You know what? From my pack, I'll pull out what looks like a little flask of brandy or something like that, and I'll unscrew it. Take a little bit of a swig, screw it back on, and I'll say cheers, and I'll throw it to Baron first.
Yeah, I'll catch it unless you make me roll something, and then pop it, take a swig, look around, and then I'll go, oh shit, and I'll go through my bag for a second, pull out a flask, and then offer it to the next person, but both of them.
Does whoever takes the flask, do you want to roll from Baron's flask? Do you want to roll me a focus roll to inspect it?
Why not? I'll take it.
Calling me out like this.
That's a 5.
It's a 5. Fantastic.
Nice.
Upon opening this flask, you smell this. It smells heavily like cinnamon. Just the spice of cinnamon. Without the sugar that you would have in like Captain Crunch. It's big red. Just that pungent, strong smell.
Like Fireball.
Like when somebody leaves Fireball out for too long.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Oof.
Fresh that cuts right through you.
So I'm imagining that's what this particular drink he has that he himself may not drink. He just carries it to make friends or customers.
There will be a look of nausea pass over Mayleen's face, remembering the pain from this morning. She'll put the cap back on and go for the brandy instead. Oh, I never did say how they got me in this. But it's similar to you, Colin. I came across them in some of my work. Learned about it through crowds, talking to people. Know the right people, you can get in just about anywhere. And then I'll pass the flasks along.
Colin just kindly passes it back, like just keeps passing it, like he doesn't take a sip. He just, there you go.
All right, yeah. I walk over, grab it. I raise it to you. Like I respect your choices, and I'll kind of keep it by my bedside. Actually, I won't put it back away. I figure I'll probably need it again soon.
I think I'm going to take a quick look up before we get out of view of land. It's my first time on a ship.
Here you go. Just so the lot of you know, in case you're not aware of Captain DeVere's past, he has worked for a number of organizations. Quite the freelancer. Not just Candela, but OUP. It was Eon, right, DM? Was that Eon or Aeon earlier?
Eons.
Eons.
Yeah.
Eons.
Hmm.
Seems to have a way of finding danger and making it back. Just
Perhaps we should also be careful what we say around him.
so everyone's aware.
Well, if that increases our chances of making it back, I'm all for it. And I'll kind of like tuck my arms behind my head, and I'll close my eyes and start, maybe trying to get a little bit of rest as the boat gets underway.
I'd like nod and like point to him and be like, bruh, same story, and just put my head back and go to sleep.
Colin's gonna go try to take in the view.
the bag that you saw Baron use before, he would use as a pillow and be like very
Okay.
protective over it.
Mm.
There's a large carpet bag that was carried in by Maylene. It's just underneath, like slightly underneath the twin bed that she has chosen.
Up top, it's not raining as hard as it was earlier in the day. It's some fine drizzle, mist. You do still see all the crew still working. There's a man on what you assume is a Gatling gun attached to this ship. There's a man controlling lights on the ship that you watch them pass by across the ocean top, some up into the darkness. And you see it just into the darkness, and it just eventually disappears.
Okay.
You hear the waves and the wind and the rain, and there's a groaning that you can't tell if it's the ship moving on the ocean or if there's something out there.
Okay.
If it's something out there, you feel lucky that right now you're not important to it.
Right.
The darkness itself, you can see where the lights on the ship are. Off of the ship, you can only see as far as a beacon or a guide light rushes by and shows. The ocean itself is dark. You assume it was probably once a beautiful dark blue. You can still see the city's lights behind you. Theoretically, the ship is only just getting out of the harbor. So you can see all of Nightingale. You can see New Brexton's lights behind it. You can see the massive lights that shine on the cathedral in Beacon Real. You can see the college. It's lit up. Everything where somebody had the funding to put lights is lit up.
Gotcha. Is taking in the view and appreciating it, being his first time on the ship, and he'll make his way as it gets further out. He'll make his way to the front of the ship to take in the darkness of the view there, and just kind of softly says to himself, "Oh, the only way forward is through."
And it is dark. This is what you imagine standing in the night with no lights, with your eyes closed, would look like, even if your eyes were open. It consumes everything.
That is
And
something.
you're sailing into that with this ship as your only safety net.
He's the curiosity of this view of pitch blackness and darkness is just like, how are they navigating with no view? It's he's just trying to like compute it in his head.
That is the question, isn't it?
But
Because you've heard stories and read stories in the bookstore of people who traveled using the stars, but you've never seen the stars. They've traveled with the positioning of the sun, but you've never seen the sun in your lifetime. Your parents never saw the sun. Their parents don't know what the sun looks like, or the moon, or the stars. So to travel in this setting without anything as a marker, that is a curious question on its own.
Only thing he can kind of fathom is some sort of really large compass, but whether they actually have that or not, he wouldn't know unless he went to the wherever they're steering the ship from. So
The bridge.
yeah, the bridge. Thank you.
The captain did say you were welcome anywhere.
Yeah, his curiosity's running through him, and he's kind of just looks at one of the crew members that are there and which way to the bridge?
This man is making sure the wires to the light are all secure against the rail, against the side of the ship, and he looks at you and he points, and you do see a set of stairs that wrap up the side of this next level, and they are lit. It's very, very dramatic for some reason. There are these little light bulbs wrapped around the hand railing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very decorative and out of place.
A little Christmassy.
Yeah, a little Christmassy.
Yeah. Thank you. Just kind of nods. Starts to make his way that way.
As you're approaching, and you do see these lights on this railing, you watch as one of the beacon lights slows down its skim across the ocean.
Mhm.
And as you look down, you do see a creature under the surface.
Mhm.
It is swimming by, does not seem interested in the ship momentarily, but
Yeah.
it swims by, and the light follows it until it no longer sees it.
Okay. He definitely makes a mental note of that. Making his way up.
In the bridge, there is quite less people here. There's roughly 5 or 6, well, 5 including the captain. And the captain is standing next to a mid-40s aged man who is looking over. It looks like a map.
Mm-hmm.
For all intents and purposes, it could be a map. But it moves. It seems to tilt when the ship tilts with the waves.
Okay. That is fascinating, Captain.
Captain DeBeer smiles. Welcome! He says, let me show you my pride and joy, my pet. He brings you to this map.
Mm-hmm.
And it is on a compass, and it is one that shifts, and it's as if part of it, as the ship turns, stays in a place. And you watch a little dial that's floating above it kind of center in a direction leading towards where you saw on the map down below the well would be.
Interesting. Just kind of leaning over it. Well, I'm sure that's very complicated, but curious as to how this all works.
This here, and he slaps the top of it. Costed me many years of bargaining.
I can imagine.
He laughs, and you see the other man. You assume this is the navigator. He tenses when the captain slaps it.
Probably shouldn't have done that. I have to say, this is all new for me. So, I very much appreciate you letting us on.
He smiles. It's always fun to face what could be the last thing I see. I haven't found it yet.
Well, I would assume the very last thing a lot of things I've seen were you and your ship, then, yes?
He thinks about it and kind of chuckles. And you see the man, he's gently, like, lifting, shoving the captain's hand
Mhm.
away. Please do not break our compass.
I have to say, Captain, we could definitely use some more literature on ships and maybe perhaps some of your adventures. It'd be quite the read for a lot of individuals.
You, you hear somebody nearby. Fairy tales. A lot of his crew has seen the creatures,
Yeah.
but they also know nobody is going to believe a captain of a ship because sailors and sailors pastimes. And Captain DeVere smiles and he says, "There was once, what was it? It had 8 arms, or was it heads?" And he just leads off into this tangent about a creature that may have had 8 arms, may have had 8 heads. Uh, the navigator gentleman uh, looks up from his map, and I don't know how the thing works, if that's what you're here for. He said, "It is our map, it is our compass in one. It gets us there, it gets us home."
Fair enough. But it must be, well, at least you know how to read it. That's the important part.
He kind of points, and there is a little uh a figurine of a ship
Mhm.
on this otherwise stationary map that moves. And you're not quite sure how, because clearly the navigator's not moving it. The map itself seems to turn like a compass and
Mhm.
shift with the ship so that it stays level. But how is this little figurine moving? And it is headed towards what looks like a well.
Can I try to inspect this a little closer?
Sure. That would be a focus roll, please. And I'm gonna say this is a high stakes.
Well, that was a 5.
Awesome. Uh, you assume this is some sort of magnetic technology basing upon charted maps of the ocean itself, along with possibly some magic, because being into occultism,
Mhm.
knowing that Candela does house magical artifacts, it is possible for something to use magic. It doesn't seem to produce any bleed,
Mhm.
so you assume it's for the most part harmless.
I believe Colin would probably have spent about like an hour and maybe hour and a half up there, just kind of hanging out with them, while just taking in and learning as much as he could, just listening to the captain.
He's moved on from his 8-armed headed figure to talking about a beautiful woman he ran into once.
Well,
But to hear him talk about this woman, she sounds like she's not of this world.
he just nods along, just being polite. Yeah. Then he, after a while, just kind of, all right, I think I'll retire for the evening.
During that hour, was there anything the rest of you have done? There has been the young boy that escorted Maylene down. He arrives with sort of a trolley of snacks
Mm.
and a full roasted chicken.
Oh,
Wow.
dang. I missed the meal.
You missed the meal.
Unless
Missed
somebody
meal cart.
wakes Baron up, he sleeps right through it.
As soon as the trolley gets wheeled in, my eyes like flutter open, and I wake up and I say, "Oh, we're having our meal here. We're not eating with the crew."
He kind of stammers, trying to find the words. The crew won't eat for another 2 hours. That's why
Oh.
there's he points at it is mostly just snacks like cookies and little
Yeah.
sandwiches, and like they've thrown something together quickly to feed you because they have a schedule that's not normal.
Gotcha. I'll start like partaking of the snacks but I'll plan on like eating my full meal a little later with the crew if they'll let me. But what does the boy look like? Nervous or like what does this character look like?
He doesn't look nervous so
Okay,
much
yeah.
as he's not used to talking to people not from the ship.
Okay.
So
All right.
on the ship they kind of they have a way, just a way of talking to each other, and a lot of times in the ocean you're not really hearing anyone. They're doing hand signals.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right. Okay.
Sometimes you don't want to be heard.
Start partaking of some of the snacks, something a bit heavier on the stomach. And just, I'm sorry, young man. Earlier I meant to ask your name. Do you mind sharing it?
uh they call me Jackson.
Jackson. I thank you again for helping me find these people here. Would have taken me much longer and likely would have fallen right on my face coming down these halls.
um you do Emil probably notices, since he's met Captain DeVere, you do notice boy isn't exactly small. You assume he's younger than, looking at him, you would assume he's older than he is. He's very
Oh, okay.
tall. He's very broad. He's got large hands that you remember shaking earlier. He kind of resembles Captain DeVere.
Looks like Captain DeVere's kid or something.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay.
So
What was their
it's
name again?
Jackson.
Jackson, that's right.
And the way he says it is Jack's son.
Gotcha.
As
Okay.
if
All right.
there's a space between the words.
Yeah. Okay.
Very old school.
Yeah. Hmm.
Alright.
And you're looking at him, and you're noticing features of Captain DeVere, and you're wondering how Captain DeVere is loud and he's boisterous and he's friendly, and he spoke to you as if he's known you for the last however long you've been alive.
Yeah.
And then there's Jackson, and he's very quiet and he's timid and he's trying to not take up space.
Okay. I'm actually going to say, yeah, Jackson. And as I'm reaching for, a small sandwich, and I just pop a little bit of it in my mouth, couldn't help but notice the resemblance. Are you the captain's kid?
He seems to think about it, and he smiles and nods. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh. Um. I'll just give him a nod and say, has kept your hide safe all these years, so got faith that he'll keep ours safe too.
Yeah, Daz lucky.
All right,
Sometimes
dude.
that's what you need in this world is a bit of luck.
And he smiles. We got a lot of luck here.
Where
We've
we're
been
headed, we'll
to.
need it.
Go ahead.
I said, good. From what I hear of where we're headed, seems like we'll need it.
I hope we don't run out then.
I'll
Nervous about where we're going?
He kind of glances at the map. And it does say the well, but he kind of mumbles, and it sounds like, I don't want to go to the devils.
Devils. Is that a pet name for something?
They call it the devil's well on land.
Well, it sounds like it matches its reputation.
I don't know. Sailors say it eats boats. Everything starts breaking. I hope Dad's new compass don't break. I hope the ship don't break. It's the only home I know. We might have to get a new one. That would be our luck. Dad, the ship would break, but we'd all live. This is he looks at his hand and he kind of counts, but you notice when he looks down, this part of one of his fingers is missing.
Ooh.
This is the inscrutable 4.
I pause mid bite.
And I'm trying to reach and get a deck of cards out again, and I almost drop the box that they're in.
As far as everybody can tell, Baron mid sleep just goes, "I'm so glad I'm asleep for this conversation."
I say, sorry, go ahead.
If it could happen, like Jackson would look at Baron and there would be question marks around his head.
Say, yeah, I suppose if you've managed to live through 3 of these things, there's got to be something to be said about your dad's luck. Let's hope it holds out. Like to, that's all right with everybody. You can go ahead and tell the crew this. I'd like to dine with them tonight.
It'd be fun. Dad'll like that. We lose the boats, but boats can be replaced. The crew always survives.
Mhm.
And he takes a moment, and he reaches, and there's one of the cookies that he takes off the trolley, and he says, see ya, as he leaves.
I kind of like, wave the little bit of a sandwich that I've got left over in my hand at him, like, cheers, and finish the rest of that. Once I know he's out of earshot, I turn to Maylene and Aaron, and more towards Maylene because I'll let Baron continue his feigned sleep, and I'll say, well, so they had the crew's lucky enough to have survived a number of things. Hopefully, the passengers have also had that same luck on these voyages.
Here's hoping. And there'll just be a single card sitting out of the deck. Well, It's the Ace of Hearts. Might bring us a bit of luck.
I think in like
Or-
the most. Oh, I'm sorry. Finish, please.
Or maybe it means that we'll find the heart of it all. And I'll duck that back into the deck and slide it away again.
I think in like the most like Tex Avery Looney Tunes way. Like Baron is sitting up at the edge of his little bed eating whatever type of little sandwich that was on that cart. And if you need to roll to see if you caught me, grab it or anything, that's fine. I don't care. But I think that he'd take a bite, and it would be like the last bite of that little piece of sandwich that he had, and he'd just be like, "I play spades more than hearts," and then he'd just lay back down.
When Colin re-enters the guest quarters, you do see this little cart.
Okay.
It is still there, and whatever has not been eaten. Little sandwiches, little cookies, whatever's left of the whole chicken.
I didn't touch it.
Yeah, I just had something light.
Yeah, he notes the cart and goes, "Oh, that smells delicious. Quite nice of them." Just sits
Yeah, the
down.
hospital.
Sorry. Yeah, he just kind of sits down to try to take what he could from the tray from the cart.
I'm gonna say, yeah, their hospitality seems sound enough. I'm gonna dine with them later, give the crew a look, and make sure everybody's on the up and up.
I don't know.
They
if
seem
you
pretty
learned-
pretty nice so far.
Don't know if you learned anything while you were out observing the deck, but just so you know, this isn't the original Inscrutable. This is the Inscrutable 4.
That checks out. Captain has some amazing stories to tell.
As we learned, the ship has a history of being broken and sundered, but the crew survives. If a little worse for wear.
Just trying to go over like the stories he was just hearing about, like these creatures and wild adventures. Trying to see if he said anything about somebody getting hurt or not making it back. And he's just like, you can see him just kind of like thinking in his head. He's like, okay. 4 ships and no casualties is an odd statistic.
An odd amount of luck.
Guess we should be happy with those odds then.
Yes. So dinner time does roll around. When you go down to the to eat, the current crew that isn't like working a shift on the deck or running lights somewhere, there's about 15 of them. Colin, you do recognize some of the people from the bridge. You three do notice Jackson, and he's standing next to the only woman you've seen on the ship. And she is sliding bowls across the table at these crew members as they come up and get them. She is the cook. She's not nearly as tall as Jackson is, because I assume he's 6'4"-ish. Whereas Captain DeVere is closer to 6'7", 6'8". She's a healthy 6 foot.
Okay.
She's the reason Jackson is shorter. You can tell they have the same messy hair. Hers is a little more tamed because she's pulled it back. And he is holding the pot still for her as she ladles out more bowls of this. And it smells very good. The whole place smells like it has been cooking all day. And you think about it, and this is late in the evening to be eating. For normal people. Normal people don't eat this late. But the crew eats this late, and they do eat slightly earlier. They have a different schedule than others because they have to maintain the lights, and they have to maintain the gun, and they have to maintain the bridge. And she's this messy. I say messy, but she's been cooking. And she's been cooking. She's yelling about they need more bowls. And she's yelling at Jackson, and she's calling him Jack. And telling him he needs to hold the pot steadier. And you see groups of crew sitting at these long tables, and they're laughing and they're relaxing, and part of them have finished this bowl within minutes of sitting down. And everyone here just feels like they've known each other for years. This is their home. This is the inscrutable. Not number 1, not number 4.
All right, I'll take a sit down among, like pretty close by to all of them, and like before they finish up, I'll just start a little bit of chit chat. But yeah, I'm just kind of scoping out the crew, getting to know them better, seeing if anybody's, feeling skittish or nervous about this, or exhibiting any kind of odd behavior. I just want to make sure everybody in the crew's legitimate.
You'd probably have to define odd behavior, because anyone willing to go to a place referred to as the Devil's Well would have to be a little odd.
A little off. Okay, all right. Just anybody maybe like keeping to themselves or not really being as social as anybody else?
Most of them seem pretty sociable. You do see members of the crew like checking to make sure everyone has a bowl. And you do see them looking towards you and you not having a bowl. And after a few minutes, Jackson comes by and he sets down bowls in front of those of you who may have not went and got one. Okay. And then you notice these people who were watching you, they take their plates and they go get seconds. So you kind of get the feeling that everyone has to be served before you can get a second serving.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense.
So they were waiting for you to get your serving before they went and got more.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. With that, I'll just start eating. I don't want to hold anybody up. So, okay. But everybody kind of looks, again, they're like family. They kind of know one another. Everybody's okay. All right. That's cool.
Yeah. You kind of assume that when they're in the kitchen and in the dining room, they run by her rules, not the captain's. The table you're sitting at, however, they are talking about this is one of the most dangerous assignments they've been contracted for. Nobody willingly goes to the Devil's Well because they lose navigation. Or that is, from sailor to sailor, they would know if you're going to lose navigation, you either have to have a way to sail without it, or you've got lost.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So the only thing they're currently worried about is if they can get in, can they get out?
Mm-hmm.
And we're able to overhear these conversations?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just shoot you I'll just kind of shoot you a look. As I pick my head up from my bowl, like almost gesturing, like as if to say, "Did you catch that?"
Yeah, and I give you just like a little nod, and I tap my ear, just letting you know that I'm listening to. But I'll withhold anything that's not small talk. I will withhold until we're back in our quarters and we can kind of talk privately without the crew listening in.
Uh, DM, is there any face in the crowd that I will recognize?
About to ask the same thing.
You would probably just recognize the navigator from the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
He does seem to be in the conversation about navigation, and he's trying to explain that as long as we continue in one path, we'll be fine. So then
Gotcha.
we'll turn around and do the same path out.
Okay. He's trying to keep on a
And
straight line.
he's explaining that they're going to drop they would be
Like
buoys.
buoys, yeah,
And
markers.
they're going to drop a heavy buoy, and then they're going to drop the floating ones in, and then they're
Mhm.
just going to follow that back out.
Okay,
Gotcha.
all right, that's reassuring.
Right. Trying to
there's a
ease the
plan.
crew's nerves. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay,
Got it.
all right. That was the
And
big question. I'm like, do we have a plan about dealing with that if it does
they're
happen?
they're not
It's
worried
something.
about the danger. They
It's the fourth boat. They're experienced.
Yeah.
right. They've figured this out. They trust that the captain's going to get them home.
Okay. You know what? Actually, if that's the case, I'm gonna sort of make it a point for myself that as we journey, what is it, like the week out, I'm gonna go around and get to know the crew and inspect let them know my military history, my
Mhm.
soldiers' history, and kind of inspect the various Gatling guns, kind of try to see if I can get the crew to show me the ropes on how to, you know, take care of
Mhm.
all of that, oil the joints, where all the, be just so I can be ready and be handy. Kind of just let them know, hey, listen, I've been in tough scrapes myself. I made it out of tough scrapes alive, and if there's any way that I can help you out of here on this boat, I'd
Mm.
feel much better about that than just sitting in my quarters.
They seem over the branch of it doesn't take a week to get there. It takes
Oh, sure,
2
sure.
days to get there.
And then back. Okay,
Mhm.
gotcha.
But over the offering of the help, they're not telling you can't. And they do seem to say, well, there's that, there's this. They do inform you where the emergency flare is.
Okay.
Hmm.
And the flare itself, you don't really understand how it would be helpful in the darkness. And it's one of those things you would have to fire it to see.
Okay.
But
All right.
you
Good to know.
you don't want to waste it.
Yeah. Totally.
I think Colin would probably ask if it was okay if he took one of the bowls when they left, from the dinner that night, back with him.
um, she nods. She makes you 3 bowls
Uh-huh.
Oh,
and covers them and sends them with you. And
thank you.
it's when she speaks to the crew and there's a group talking, they seem to get quieter so that she can be heard. She's not as loud as her husband.
Mm-hmm.
She does inform you that her name is Holly. You do notice that most of the crew calls her Mama Holly.
Okay.
At least most of the younger crew. the older men, they call her ma'am. She fusses at them.
I'm pretty sure his Colin's first instinct would have been "Thank you, ma'am," and she probably would have corrected everything like, "Oh, Miss Holly."
I think if anybody's paying attention to Baron at any given like real moments, he's not at this little dinner. I think what he'd wake up and then like anybody who's walking to and from our room would find him kind of like going up and down the hall a little bit. Like he gets used to like how the ship moves, and then he's like scavenging, but like not for like big things. Like you'd see him get like tin or metal casings. He ends up with like if there's any kind of wiring at all, he's gonna want to take some of that and like strip it, and like slowly he's like tinkering with something. Like anybody who's paying attention to him, he's like it looks like he's putting something together. And like he would go up to like some of the lanterns and like grab a little bit of like just drops of oil out of it, and then slowly he's like doing stuff, and then like later on in his bed he'd sit there and you just hear him go and he's basically made himself a Zippo.
A little lighter. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
But it's got like a pretty wide tank on it. Like the flame itself is like a flat, like it's just a little bit bigger than it should be. It's not like long, but it's like this flat little flame, and it almost looks like maybe if there was electricity at all or anything that could like go through it, it would have it sparks it up to start it. And he like looks at it and goes, "Okay, cool. No matter where we go, I'm gonna have some kind of light." And then he just puts it away and like slides it in his pocket.
Okay.
Baron, if you're around the room, you'd see that Maylene did not go off to the dinner, but instead pulled a smaller bag, handheld, out of her larger one, cleared a spot on the bed, and laid down a fine cloth, and pulled out small vials and is mixing something together and tying it off in a small paper bag and tucking it away.
Yep, and he's gonna give you as little attitude as possible, because as far as he's concerned, you're seeing him do some shit, he's seeing you do some shit, and ain't nobody need to know about it.
You will notice the bags look incredibly thin and are being placed very gingerly back into that same pouch.
It's terrifying.
And then one is tucked softly into a cushioned pocket inside of her jacket.
Word. All right.
I think when Colin gets back to the room, he'll give out those 2 extra bowls, and the third one and he doesn't take a bed. He kind of lays down on the floor and puts the bowl next to him, uncovering it, and then just puts his hat over his face and just sleeps like this, his arms crossed.
That's okay, because Colin doesn't have a bed. There is a very large, long-haired, orange cat laying on it.
What?
And this is Niklaus.
And Colin just he's like, "I don't even want to know how you got here, but you can eat." And then
Your first instinct will be to wipe her hands, make sure they're clean, and then try and just let the cat come towards her with a hand outstretched.
And in a moment, Kyle just kind of picks his hat up a little bit and goes, "Don't touch the cat." He's a bit mean.
Did you bring your
This
pet
cat
with
looks
you?
like.
Hmm?
Did you bring your pet with you to fight these monsters?
I look at you and you say that, Baron, and I kind of like point at you, like, yeah, what you said.
And this cat does look like it fights dogs for a living. So
Oh, well,
just
Baron.
just keeping that. Yeah, keeping his hat over his face. You just hear him go. Nick just follows me around.
I don't know what I need to roll for this, but Baron wants
what
to.
do you want to do?
I want to scoop this cat and pet its stomach.
Oh Jesus!
Let's go with control.
Control. All right. Let's do this.
And I think
Okay.
seeing that the cat looks like it fights dogs on the daily just makes Maylene all the more enamored with it.
So I have a little black circle on control, so that means I get 1 dice or 2.
1.
1. All right, here we go. I got a 4.
Okay.
And I'm gonna like just talk to it like I've known it for its whole lifetime. Like, and like Baron's gonna pick this thing up and be like, yo, what's up, man? We both be coming from the same street, you know that, so that's all good, man. And I'm just like petting it, and like I'm going to scoop it, put it in my arm, and pet it. And if it rips me
You just
apart,
Nick's like, whoa, Niklaus,
And you see
don't.
and at first it's been scooped and it tilts its head against him for a moment before it wait a second. And it looks at you and its eyes widen. And this cat immediately, and you feel it as its paws press against your chest, the claws extract, and it pushes away from you. Now this cat probably stands as tall as a corgi.
God,
It
Just
probably
love
weighs
him.
as much as one too.
Just come eat the bowl. Don't. Just don't.
I'll just let it go, and if it drops to the ground, it drops to the ground. But as long as it doesn't cut my, I mean, even if it does cut my thing, I would say Baron likes animals, and you would see that like genuineness, like he don't care. He'd let it go and be like, and then watch it and be like, we're gonna be best friends though. You see.
I just kind of tap at the bowl that has the food in it. I'm just like, ugh.
He does like take a minute to sniff the food. But it's odd because you've been technically with Colin for hours. And you've been in this room. The two of you have been in this room for hours. And this is the first time you're seeing the cat.
I mean, cats be doing what cats be doing, yo.
Yeah.
Thing I've
He just
seen.
kind of sighs and goes, he can be extremely rough with people. He only lets Miss Sophie touch and pet and cuddle him. Everyone else, yeah. He has a habit of following me places he's not supposed to, even though I locked the store up.
I mean, some of my favorite people are rough people. Cats are people too, you know.
You know.
Seems this
Well,
cat has quite the way of hiding.
yeah, he goes in and out from time to time, but he's always around.
It's awesome.
So the next day passes without much incident. When you go on deck, you do in the distance start to see something in the darkness getting closer. It sounds large, and it does make a sound as it moves in the ocean. And you do see the crew kind of getting nervous because this thing, even in the darkness, has enough mass that you can see it. And you can see the waves between whatever this thing is and the boat have the movement crashing back and forth. And you watch as the lights on that side of the ship are trying to focus on it in the darkness. The problem is that when it moves, it hits the side of the ship.
Ooh. Do we all
And that's
feel
where
that?
we're
Like,
going to... You all do feel it, but that's
Okay.
where we're going to end for this week.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
good.
okay. Cliffhanger. I love it.